Hey there, good evening. It's time for the Bronx Buzz. You know what we do. We talk to reporters and writers and editors and journalists, anybody who's putting stuff out in the Bronx. You get a little insight into what they're talking about. And I think you're going to really be interested in this particular segment. It's about the Bronx Democratic Party. In our second segment, we bring on an artist, and we have a friend of mine who's a really talented artist and photographer. We'll do that in a moment. But right now, it is senior reporter for New York Focus, Sam Mellins. Nice to see you, Sam. Thanks for joining us.
Good to be here. Glad to be making my first appearance on the beat.
First appearance. Yeah, well, you keep writing stuff about the Bronx. We'll keep calling.
Okay.
So you and your colleagues at New York Focus wrote a fascinating article that I hadn't heard about Bronx politics. Why don't you just talk in general about the three-part series? If you want to talk about what alerted you or what concerned you before you got into putting it together.
Yeah, so the first thing that tipped me off that sort of led to this whole series, it was just something that I happened to see as I was looking through campaign finance records, which is, what we reporters do sometimes, just go trawling and see what's out there. And what I saw was that the Democratic Assembly Campaign Committee, which is a political committee that supports Democrats running for the state assembly,
Right.
had reported sending a lot of money to the Bronx Democratic Party. Now, this was already weird because the Bronx is not known for having very competitive elections between Republicans and Democrats. So, what do they need all this money from the Democratic Party for, as opposed to places where there are very competitive elections, like Long Island or the Hudson Valley, for example?
Right.
And then
And
what was
let me just interject. So this was coming from a state Democratic Party that funds assembly campaigns, and they sent money to the Bronx Democratic Party through a consultant called London House, right?
no, London House comes
Not
into this
there.
later.
All
No,
right. Sorry.
but they don't factor into the story yet. They
Okay.
just sent checks. They were this
I
statewide
see.
political committee was writing checks to the Bronx Democratic Party, and that was weird for the first reason I mentioned. And then what was even weirder was that the you have to report this on both ends. If you're a political organization and you send money, you have to report it, and if you're a political organization and you receive money, you have to report
Of
it.
course. Sure.
So it should show up on both ends. But
Right.
there was $400,000 that the statewide committee, the assembly committee, reported sending that the Bronx party had never reported receiving.
Never
It had just
reported.
gone
Wow.
missing. So that was what really set the alarm bells ringing for me.
Right. Okay. What is and they never filed those reports. Ultimately, they did file those reports.
Right. So we wrote our first story. We gave all the involved parties, the opportunity to comment and explain what had happened. None
Right.
of them did. So we wrote a story saying, "Hey, $400,000 seems to have gone missing, and no one will tell us where it is. What is happening?" And after we did that story, the Bronx Party filed a lot of reports that it turned out they had failed to file. They had not complied with the laws governing campaign finance disclosure, and it
Should there be fines behind that if it comes to the attorney general's attention?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a judge, I'm not a law,
Neither am I, certainly.
I'm not a lawyer. I think the state board of election is who has jurisdiction over this. They are not known for vigorously enforcing campaign finance law. People can sort of get away with a lot
And
and let
also, if
a
it
lot slide.
ultimately it was documented and it was filed, um, it's I suppose. I mean, I don't know. I'm also not a lawyer.
Yeah, I mean, there's no I would guess I would say there's no lasting harm to this. I think you could also make
Right.
an argument that like we have these laws for a reason and transparency is good and there should be consequences for failing to comply even if you eventually fix that, but
All right.
that's for the board.
So then go to part two.
Right. So once they filed these reports, it actually showed a whole bunch of things that hadn't been public before, not only the contributions from the statewide assembly committee, but various other contributions that they had received, and also payments that they had made, things that they had spent on that they had never disclosed.
Oh,
So we started combing through this and seeing, what was there, what these disclosures that our reporting had prompted, what was contained in them. And the most interesting thing that we found was the payments that you mentioned earlier to this political consulting firm called London House.
Right.
This is a firm that was founded a few years ago by a man by the name of Jason Laidley, who is the former both chief of staff and campaign manager for State Senator Jamal Bailey, who is the chair of the Bronx Democratic Party.
Right.
So the party, under Jamal Bailey's leadership, has in the past few years sent about $300,000 in payments to London House, the firm run by Bailey's old chief of staff and campaign manager.
Right.
What these payments are for is a little bit unclear. There's like very brief memos, like to the
Well,
effect.
let me ask you this. I mean, I know both the senator and Mr. Laidley very well. Is it possible? And I have not talked to them about this. Is it possible that he was providing, political support or campaign services for either the senator or for other candidates?
Yeah, that's my assumption of what
And
was
that
happening.
that would be perfectly appropriate. I mean, that's why he got paid.
Yeah, so and certainly, there's no indication that anything illegal is happening here.
Okay.
Um, the Senator Bailey responded a little bit when I asked him what these payments were for, and it was to the
Right.
effect of saying that they were for voter outreach, for administrative services, things of that nature. I mean, you could ask like, why can't this be done in-house? The party has staff or could hire staff. Why do you need to hire this outside vendor? What kind of voter outreach are we talking about in a county where Democrats outnumber Republicans 10-1?
Right.
Uh, and you could raise questions about sort of the prudency of some of this spending, but it's certainly legal.
Let me just interject. And again, this is just for chatter. This is the Bronx Buzz. So we're going to buzz a little bit. I interviewed Assembly Member Tapia, Udelka Tapia, and this was after the election. And she was concerned, of course, about the election of Donald Trump in a wholly, from a Democrat's point of view. But she felt that the Democratic Party did not run a rally, did not do any real campaign events. And I understand that they don't need to because, we only have one Republican elected officials and all the ones that ran won essentially 85-15, not quite across the board, but, largely. So, yes, I would wonder what campaigning might have been done. I don't know. I don't want to speculate the wrong thing, but that would be my thought, is that you don't need a lot of money or a lot of campaign events unless it sponsored people's campaigns. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
and
just
I guess
speculating.
yeah, I would say also like if you are spending these relatively large sums on voter outreach and activation and campaigning, then there shouldn't be anything wrong with showing the receipts and saying, yeah, we spent
Oh,
$150,000 on our voter registration drive. We spent $100,000 on running radio ads to get out the vote. Just
yeah,
like
sure.
if it's all above board, then just like let us know what's
So,
going on. Why not?
so what was problematic for you and why you thought it was a news story is that it wasn't documented. That it was like, yeah, what was that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty reasonable to say if you're going to be sending $300,000 of campaign funds to a firm run by a very close friend of yours and former employee, then I think it's reasonable to ask for a relatively detailed accounting of how those funds were used.
Yeah, and why not? I mean, assuming the best, not assuming the worst. Why not just account it? Maybe it's a failure of accounting. I mean, simple as that.
And
There was
I
another.
just I just want to be clear, like there isn't anything that like they are legally required to disclose that they did not, but rather it's that the legal requirements are very slim. You have to say how much money you sent and provide like a two-word description of what it was for. It'll say
Right.
like campaign services. Okay.
There was another aspect of this before we run out of time about judges, Bronx judges who ran for office. What was your concern, or what did you guys uncover? I mean, I don't want to make it sound worse maybe than it is, but what was out there about that? The judges' campaigns.
So what we started doing next was looking into London House. It's a relatively new firm. It was started, I think, in 2021, only really has been active since 2022 in a significant way. And what we noticed is that nearly every judge who has been elected to civil court in the Bronx in that time span has paid London House, or in some cases, a separate group called Collado Consultants, which is run by an employee of London House who also works for the Bronx Democratic Party. So it's sort of an open secret across the city that the process for selecting judges is quite nepotistic and controlled by party insiders, not only in the Bronx, but across the city.
Sure.
But this seemed to be sort of an example of how that functions in the Bronx and sort of who has
How much
finger in
money,
that pie.
how much money did each judge's campaign pay? I mean, are we talking about a lot, like hundreds of thousands of dollars? Or are we talking
Not
about, well,
in
they paid
individual
20,000
cases.
or 30,000 or something?
Yeah, I mean these races are not, we're not talking about such massive sums of money, especially in an age when a presidential campaign costs $1 billion. We're talking about, maybe $20,000, maybe $80,000. But these candidates, many of them spent 60% of their funds or more just on paying London House. And London House and Collado Consultants have together collected about 40% of the total spending on civil court races in this time span. So it's less the raw amount of cash and more the sort of capture of a very big slice of this market.
Do you have a sense, Sam, of other judge races? I mean, we know what the situation is like in the Bronx. I mean, I know I believe when I looked at my list on my ballot, none of them were opposed. Maybe one or two at best. I don't recall. Is it like that in other counties that judges have a relatively easy campaign in other New York State counties, or is the Bronx, kind of an exception? And then that would suggest that every judge candidate, regardless of in the Bronx or elsewhere, knows that we got to pay a little bit, we got to do a little bit for our campaign.
Yeah, I think in some
Got
counties
about
in the
30
state,
seconds before we got to.
yeah, I'll be quick. In some counties in the state, judge elections are competitive between Democrats and Republicans.
Right.
In New York, except Staten Island, they are not. And the real decision is when the Democratic Party bosses in the different boroughs gather to pick their preferred nominees. And once it gets to the voters, it's been decided.
Right, pretty much. Listen, Sam, I appreciate the dialogue. We have reached out, and actually did before we had this conversation. We reached out to Senator Bailey. He might come on my other program called Bronx Talk, but we'll see if that happens. The dialogue is interesting, and it's informative for the people of the Bronx and for everybody to know how systems work. And we appreciate your time. It is Sam Mellins, senior reporter for New York Focus. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you around.
Great. And if Senator Bailey does come on, let me know.
We'll be glad to do that. Okay, that will do it for this segment. We'll take a short break. When we come back, as I said, a wonderful photographer and artist, and you're going to really enjoy what he's got. Don't go away. Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. I always love it when one of my friends is actually on the show, and he's a neighbor and a friend, but he's also a talented artist, photographer, and editor. Jordan Moss, nice to see you, my friend.
Great to see you too.
Jordan, People will know you were the editor of the Norwood News for a long time, but now you've really gone headlong into the notion of being an artist, being a photographer, but also continuing your writing and your editing skills with a newsletter called Art All Around Us. Talk about Art All Around Us and why it's perfectly appropriate for the people of the Bronx.
Sure. It's on, just to start out with, it's on artallaroundus.substack.com. And it's every week. I started it because though I know a good bit about art, shows and art happenings of all kinds throughout the Bronx, there's a lot that I didn't know. And this has been really enjoyable to explore all of the things that I knew and didn't know about, and to meet folks that are involved in that. And there's no one place that you can see everything happening this next weekend throughout the Bronx. Not perhaps everything, but more than anything else that one can find. I mean, I couldn't find that. So that's one of the reasons why that I sought that out. And I want, young folks too, to know about what goes on right where they all live.
What's interesting to me, and certainly we know what the politics are. I really believe, especially in the Bronx, we need to focus on our arts, our culture, our diversity, music and dance and all the other things that you write about. And for you to put that together, I think was kind of a brilliant thing and well-timed, because I think we in the Bronx, who are underserved in every which way,
right,
need that more than ever, because that's what fuels who we are. That's Gary's editorial.
No, thank you. And like, exactly. There are sites to learn about everything going on in like Manhattan, and there are none, until now for the Bronx. And, there are a couple of local newspapers that have a good bit, but, it's, it can't be everything. So that's why
that's great. So people, now I get it in my email, but you said it's artallaroundus.substack.com.
Right. artallaroundus.substack.com. That's correct.
Excellent. Let's get everybody on it, because it's who we are. So
right.
Yeah. But listen, Jordan.
I'll add just one thing quick. Sure. It's free, and I want everyone to have access to it throughout the Bronx. Of course, to keep it happening and growing, I seek supporters. But there's no blockage at all to anyone's seeing it.
Yeah. And also, I know, because of my Bronx Music podcast, people can send you stuff you want to see. If somebody's got an art exhibit or an art program, or a dance program or a music program, let Jordan know and he'll put it in there. All right, let's talk about you and your work. Were you always a photographer, or did kind of
I wouldn't say that. I'd say, after college and a few years after that, I actually took my first photography class. I can't see your face, but at Lehman College.
Okay.
And I took that with my wife back when, in the 90s. And that's, I was interested, at that time, but I knew little about it. And, really ever since, I didn't have, I took photographs a lot during my time at, my 17 years at the Norwood News. But that was all, things that I had to do. Took some, artsy shots, otherwise, but it was really after my brain cancer, and surgery 12 years ago, that I had a lot of time and a new brain in some ways to get passionate about that and about my abstract art, which was totally new.
Did you so you just go and take a camera out and try and take good pictures?
Yeah, I mean, I have to like tell you a secret, okay? That I have cameras, like, 35 millimeter ones. But I take shots when I'm just outside, when I go for a walk, or I go to somebody's house, or I have to shop or whatever. So I have my phone, and I use my iPhone like
Almost
95%
wow.
of the time.
Let's
And I find that there are some things that I can do, but there's a lot that I can do.
let's
And
put some pictures up before we run out of time. I want to show
oh,
people
excellent, great.
what it is that you
Thank
do.
you.
Okay, so
Yeah.
what this is upside down, it looks like.
No, that's right. That's the right way.
Oh, 'cause
That's
it was a
at the botanical
reflection.
garden.
Wow.
And that's me looking into a pond,
Wow.
behind the conservatory there, and that's the reflection of
Wow.
that. Yeah.
Wow. All right, let's show
Thank
some
you.
more. Anderson's got a whole bunch of
Okay.
them.
Yeah, I like just things that are peeling apart, that are colorful, that look like art. That's in the East Village in Manhattan.
Is
Just a
that like a
wall in front of a
wall of
building.
peeling paint?
Yeah, peeling paint. Folks, post signs up there. They get peeled off. They get painted. There's all
Wow.
kinds of things, and they change from year to year. There's like all kinds of things there.
Wow, fascinating. Keep it going. Let's see.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's a
Woo!
flower near my house, and I like to take close-up shots because there's so much that goes on inside there, and the colors. I just love that.
This was done with an iPhone?
Yep.
You should be in the Apple advertisements for these phones, because that's a hell of a photograph.
Right.
A hell of a photograph with one of these.
Yeah. Thank you.
Very, very good. What else we got? And look at this.
Yeah, that's just a tree up in the Berkshires there, and there are trees all around that looks like, to me, like a person who's like conducting them all.
Yeah. Wow. Fascinating. Do you take a lot of time, like to set them up, or is it really, you just shoot, poke?
No. I mean, the shooting I take. It's not film, so you get it's good and bad. But the good part is you take a lot of shots, and I picked the one that I like the most, and I edited it a bit when I put it in Instagram or have a show or something like that.
Right.
And
They are, Jordan. They are just beautiful. What do we got? One or two more? Let's take a look.
yeah, my artwork. Yeah.
Here we
That's
go.
my abstract artwork. Yeah. And that really, arose, after my cancer, my interest in doing artwork. And that's like, peeled cardboard and paint and pastel.
Do you spend a lot of time, like on a piece like that, or is it something that comes to you, or do you start it and then get back to it in 2 days later or something?
Yeah. I mean, I'd say there's like 300 or more glued little pieces in that, so it's not like a one-day thing or anything. It's like when I give myself time to like do the work, and I do 10 or 15 like or something like that. But yeah, it's like sometimes it's hard. You don't know what's the next way you want to go with it. But I always like, it's since my cancer, it's really been a time to really chill out and really be focused on my art. And I've really enjoyed that. My mom did abstract art, which I love but didn't do, and my dad was a sculptor. So art really came to me after my cancer.
It's in your blood, actually.
Yeah.
Now, I always am interested in the muse, in an artist's muse. When you wake up in the morning, do you say to yourself, I think I'll take my camera out today, or I think I'll sit at the easel, or I'll do something? Or is it one of those things that's a little more organic than planned?
Yeah, well, I try to set up morning time for an hour or two to do my abstract artwork. Photography wise, it's just literally everywhere I am that day. It's like wherever I have to go to and do, or when I go for a run, it's more of a walk because I stop and like take shots.
Especially because you go in Van Cortlandt Park and it's so beautiful in Van Cortlandt Park, and there are so many things to see, you can't resist. That's my
right.
own
I mean, there's never, as you know, going to be an end to what to be of what's to be seen there. I mean, it's like, I think, what is it, 1,500 acres or something like that? It's like, immense. The second biggest one in the city, as you know.
Actually, third.
Oh, third.
Ellen
Okay.
Bay, there's one in Staten Island, and then Van
I
Cortlandt.
see. Okay.
And
You
so,
win.
I would know that, so that's okay.
Yeah.
Listen, the other thing I wanted to kind of shout about, now, is it still up there now at On Beale Bach? You had a show, and is the show still up? I mean,
Yeah. The show is still up until Sunday, I'm pretty sure. Well, it's up now. It's not going to close, before that. And I might still plan on Friday Eve, and I haven't finalized this yet, but just have like a gathering then of the closing. Yeah.
I'm also
all are welcome to come, of course. So.
On Beale Bach, what is that, 238th Street, right? West
Right.
238th Street up
Right.
there in Riverdale. I'm also curious about this. So you saw all your artwork in one place like that, like in a gallery. And I've talked to other artists who, they work individually, they create this piece, then they create that piece, but they never see all their stuff like out there. As you know, my wife is an artist as well, and also had a show years ago at On Beale Bach. And it was very interesting for her to kind of see it all in a place. Did you have that sensation when you saw the show?
It's all,
weird?
it's my third or fourth show, and it's not weird at all. It's totally like enjoyable to have folks see what you spend a lot of time on, and I'm always interested. Nobody has the same thought about each piece, and they I learn from them about what they're interested in and how they interpret it. So
and sometimes I know from my wife Suzanne, sometimes you will see something or somebody will say something and you say, wow, I never really liked that piece, but no, you know what, you're right.
No, but they see things in the piece that I have not seen. And that's my abstract art that's not in the show. It's just the photography, and the photography as well. They see in the side of a tree like a dog's eyes, or like something like that, or ears.
Listen, Jordan, we got to run, but artist, photographer, editor, friend, Jordan Moss, thank you. Regards to Margaret, and keep doing it. Art is all around us. It is in the Bronx, and Jordan is the guy that's letting everybody see what's going on. We appreciate it.
Thanks a ton, and art all around us. Substack.com. That's the place to go.
Beautiful. All right. That'll do it for the Bronx Buzz for this evening. And we will say what we always say. If the curtain don't fall, the creek don't rise, we'll be here next week. Good night.